Chapter 33. Ask Questions. Trig and Rulon spent the next hour in the cockpit, doing astrogation calculations as quickly as they could. Eventually, Kara's claim was verified. "We can do it," Trig reported to the crew. "If we burn the engine hard and avoid detours or unnecessary stops, we can get to the Shroudwalker Enclave before Kaldorix reaches the Olenbar homeworld." "One of our targets is on that station," Ponico told him. "We can get the Keystone Shard from Vitruvius and continue on through the conduit to Tritonis." "Will Vitruvius just hand it over?" Trig asked. "I don't want to dodge more torpedoes." "He will be hesitant, but I think he can be convinced," Ponico replied. His new friends at the Shroudwalker Enclave had no love for Malum, and they might be able to help us. Trig knew that the Enclave was located at the outermost edge of the luminous frontier, but he misinterpreted the concept. For the first few days of the journey, Trig peered out of the windows, expecting the starfield to grow dim before being reduced to blackness. Eventually, he did figure out that the edge of the luminous frontier and the end of the galaxy were not the same thing. "What separates us from the rest of the galaxy anyway?" Trig asked. "How do we know when we've left the frontier?" "Before the Nagyari Wars, getting into the frontier from the rest of the galaxy used to be difficult," Captain Cantor explained. "There were only 2 hyperlanes connecting this region to the rest of the galaxy. Ralpakin's horde constructed a series of gateways to remedy this, but then," Cantor laughed, "then we found out there's no one out there." Trig raised an eyebrow. "The rest of the galaxy is empty," Cantor explained. "No life-bearing worlds, no stations, no evidence of life aside from primogenitor ruins. Millions upon millions of star systems, no life to be found. Organic, synthetic, nothing's out there." A few more days into the journey, Trig and Tenna had an alarming experience in the dreamworld. The song of the Solitaire appeared in the skies over the river, while the green thunderstorm seemed to draw nearer to the children. But the most crucial moment came shortly before the dream ended. One of the Sutherian gods appeared. Phaeom, augury of revelation, confronted the children and spoke. "I will now answer your questions." Trig and Tenna were excited, and the questions tumbled forth like a waterfall. "Why do we need to collect the Keystone Shards? Why are the Keystone Shards so special? What does Alex Camber want with them? Where's Kaldorix been the last 13 years? Who stole Alex's Keystone? What is the Song of the Solitaire? What's in Malum's workshop at the Necropolis? Why did the Song of the Solitaire kill Malum? How did Appia get aboard the Cascade? Who's flying the Kaldorix? Does Alex know Malum has a son? Did Malum know about me? How does Manius know the future? What happened to Pentua? Where is she? What's happening back on Sutheria? Is the SLA winning? What's Ponico's deal? Why is Alex rebuilding the Horde? Did Appia really give me a Birkin courting gift? How can we walk around safely on Tritonis?" Smiling warmly, the augury of revelation held up his hand, signaling the children to be silent. "It is good that you are both inquisitive," he said. "You have, in the past few months, missed several opportunities to question the world around you. I urge you to refrain from being so passive in the future. You must not be passengers in your own story. Now, let me answer the questions you have asked." The god took a step towards the children, and they became giddy with excitement. But before Phaeom could say another word, a painfully loud crack of thunder caused Trig and Tenna to cover their ears and cower in terror. Phaeom turned around just in time to see 2 more bolts of lightning descend from the sky. The Song of the Solitaire was attacking something very close by. A deep purple shadow traveled swiftly across the landscape, dodging from one side to the other as the Song of the Solitaire attacked with additional lightning strikes. "Go!" Phaeom yelled. "Run through the broken gate!" Phaeom pointed to something behind Trig and Tenna. Trig looked around and spotted a stone archway between two trees. It looked as though a perfectly round ring had been stood up on one end and then left for nature to reclaim. Tenna started running immediately. Trig looked around to see that Phaeom was pointing one finger towards the oncoming purple shadow, as though he was guiding the Song of the Solitaire in its efforts to strike the new threat. For a moment, just a brief flicker of a moment, Trig could have sworn that this malevolent shadow had a nightmarish face. He ran. Trig was faster than Tenna, reaching the ring just as she did. "It's really broken," Tenna said, pointing up. "Does he really want us to run through it?" Tenna was right. The circular arch was cracked so thoroughly that it was broken in two. Trig could see daylight streaming through the break in the stone arch. Trig wanted to point out that this gate was a new addition to the dream world, but first he looked back. The mysterious purple shadow had reached the spot where Phaeom was. The augury of revelation was no longer visible, and the Song of the Solitaire was raining lightning onto the shadow with abandon, splintering trees and sending dirt flying into the air. "No time to think! Go!" Trig yelled. Then he pushed Tenna through the broken gate. As soon as Tenna passed through the gate, the dream ended and she woke up. Moments later, the same thing happened to Trig. So, you're saying we weren't alone in the dream world? That's what I'm thinking. Someone else is in there with us and the gods. Trig and Tenna were sitting in one of the torpedo magazines. Everyone else thought they were doing maintenance, but they had really come down here just to talk. Tenna folded her arms as she considered Trig's theory. "Okay, but what about the Song of the Solitaire?" she said. "I've been thinking about that too," Trig said. "I mean, we've seen it attack other things, but it's never tried to hurt us." "What about that time in the river?" Tenna asked. "We've seen how that thing attacks," Trig said. "It uses lightning to strike people. I think the shadow creature was responsible for the river trying to drown us." Tenna bit her lip, lost in thought and not fully convinced. "Phaeom was right," Trig said. "Ever since our last trip into the dream world, I've been rethinking a lot of stuff, and there are things that don't add up." "Like what?" Tenna asked. "Well," Trig racked his brains. "Appia, for one. Hunro Medical Center and the Venka Urbo spaceport are clear on the opposite sides of the city from each other. How did she find us so quickly and get aboard the Cascade without anyone noticing until after we took off? She hasn't mentioned her dad once since we left either. Then Anfel makes fun of me, saying Appia is hitting on me, even though I know she's not." Tenna waved her hand dismissively. "Trust me, Trig, sometimes the message gets lost in translation from girls to guys." An odd look came over Tenna's face. "Hey, speaking of," she started to say, but Trig went on. "And what about Manius? He made a big show about it, but did we ever find out exactly how he knows everything he does? We don't even know if his prophecies come true. Ponico just talked him up the whole time." For a moment, Tenna lost her train of thought. Then she recovered and said, "Hey, you're right. Maybe we could even do things to stop those fortunes from coming true." "Exactly!" Trig clapped his hands, then froze when Tenna grabbed them with her own. "Trig," she said, looking straight into his eyes, "what you said about Appia?" Trig could see a new energy in Tenna's gaze. "I don't know where Anfel is getting the idea," Trig said. "And you're not, thinking about her, like, Trig could not help but laugh. "Once you learn how to read minds, I'll have to keep my head clear." Tenna looked hurt. "But seriously, no," Trig added. "Appia's okay, but that's it." Tenna breathed a sigh of relief. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but Roulan's voice sounded over the intercom. Shroudwalker Enclave on sensors. Let's get ready to work, people.